bring up something that we started last week and we didn't finish it. It's very important because in Shmona Esrei, every time we daven Shmona Esrei, the first thing we ask for after Baruch Zeboy Yisrael B'Shalom, Elokai Nitzor L'Shoni Meira, heed my tongue from evil, Usfasai Midaber Mirma, and my lips from speaking, let's call it something which is fraudulent or misleading. Last week, the topic of Mashiach and Olam Haba came up.
I'm okay.
Yaakov Meir raised the question, who wants Mashiach? Remember last week we spoke about it? Who wants Mashiach? What's lacking in our lives?
We can't do the job ourselves. We've shown this for centuries and centuries.
Yeah, but nevertheless, there are people like him, like Yaakov Meir, who asked this question. We more or less are living a comfortable life. Everybody has more or less a place to live. He has a roof over his head. He has hot water whenever he wants. He doesn't have to go out to some bore and draw the water and bring it home, turn on the tap.
And toilet paper, too.
And toilet paper, and a bathroom at home. That's right, the bathroom. When I came to Israel...
But no baby formula.
I came to Israel here in Shaarei Chesed, they had outhouses. I came 51 years ago. There are people in Shaarei Chesed who did not have a bathroom inside the house. They had to go out to the Chatzer, their own Chatzer. They had to go out to the Chatzer to go to the Sherutim. Imagine getting up in the middle of the night and it's cold and it's rainy and it's everything. You have to go out to the bathroom. You have to get dressed to go to the Sherutim.
And what they do for toilet paper.
Yeah. My wife grew up in a spot like that.
Yeah. So today, say, Rabbi Yaakov Meir says, what do we need Mashiach for? And we have the bathrooms at home, hot water, air conditioning. Air conditioning. What do you need Mashiach for? Yeah. So we were saying last week that you should know that this is not only the average person who might be thinking that way. There are Rabbanim, Chashiv Rabbanim, who are in that mindset too. And I brought up an example which I want to finish, and I didn't want to give anybody the misconception. I had such charata afterwards that I couldn't finish it. Somehow we got interrupted and it went to something else. I started to tell over about Rabbi Elyashiv, Oliver Shalom. His family published a more or less biography, short biography, and Seder Hayom of Rabbi Elyashiv. What was his day like? From the time that he woke up until the time that he went to sleep. So they gave all the details. He used to wake up 2, 3 in the morning, of course, wash his hands, make a wasser, and almost immediately he's learning. He starts learning right away. Sit down by the Gemara and he's learning. This is 3 o'clock in the morning, something like that, and then he learns a couple of hours until the time for davening. He davens with the nets of the Sikh minion. He goes to daven. Afterwards he has chavrusos. I don't know when he eats exactly. So I was looking at his Seder Hayom. It was interesting to see how the Gedolim, how they live. I want to know. Very little we know about our Gedolim in the Torah. We don't know about Moshe's daily life, Abraham's daily life, the details of their mornings and that. We don't know much about it. Only what the Torah desired to tell us, what Hashem dictated. This is what they have to know. The daily life we don't know. So here's something, a revelation of a Gadol's daily life. I'm wondering to myself, there's something missing here in this description of his daily life. What's that? There's no notation of him saying Tikkun Chatzos. Tikkun Chatzos is one of the basic things that we have to have on our mind all the time. We're supposed to say Al Naros Bavel before Birchas HaMazon during the week, to always remember the Churban Beis HaMikdash. You're sitting here at home eating a nice meal, have all the things that you want. You're forgetting that the Shekhinah is in Golas. Forgetting it. You have to keep that on your mind all the time. And the prime time to think about that is in the middle of the night when you wake up. You say, Tikkun Chatzos. So I'm saying to myself, where is it? It's not here. So I asked one of his grandchildren, who was very well informed of Rabbi Yashiv's daily Seder, because he was one of the people who was serving him, who was, as an older man, his grandchildren used to take care of him. And so they answered, well, it could be he said it and nobody else knew about it. You know, he sort of hid it. So maybe Rabbi Yashiv said Tikkun Chatzos, let's assume Bidan L'Kavschus, that he said it. But it wasn't in the pamphlet. It wasn't there. So I'm going to say something. If I were to be asked the question, why would Rabbi Yashiv not said Tikkun Chatzos? I would answer what we just answered before. What is lacking in his life? He has everything that he needs. He has his Gemara. He doesn't need luxuries. He doesn't want luxuries. He has his Gemara. He has his Torah, his Shiurim. That's all he needs. That's his life. And he's very happy. He has food to eat. He has not a especially fancy-looking house at all, by no means. The old house, old Yerushalmi house. But it's enough for him. He doesn't need anything. Like, you know, Rabbi Aryeh Levine. When Menachem Begin came to visit Rabbi Aryeh Levine, he didn't even have a soap dish which was in the wall. It was on the floor. So Rabbi Menachem Begin wanted to bring him a soap dish to put it in the wall right next to the sink. What do I need it for? He says, it's on the floor. I have soap. So if I bend down, what's the difference? It has to be in the wall right next to the sink. What do I gain by that? There was nothing lacking in his life. So I would say, not Chalil V'chas, no one should get the idea that I'm saying any Lashon Hara about Rabbi Yashiv. They didn't say Tikkun Chatzos. I'm saying that if I would ask a logical reason why it wasn't in the pamphlet, and if he didn't say Tikkun Chatzos, why not? Because he feels he didn't Gan Eden.
He didn't.
He feels he didn't Gan Eden.
Right.
I don't feel it. He doesn't feel the Churban. He has his Torah. He's learning Torah day and night. That's his life. He's the happiest person in the world. He's learning Torah. That's all he does is learning Torah, answers shilas. People come to him with a psak, and he gives shiurim. Is something lacking? No, nothing lacking. So this is what was behind Rabbi Yaakov Meir's question last week. Do you need Mashiach? What do you need Mashiach for? Everything is great. The answer is, people forget about what's going on all over the world. The world situation is, as we say, ala panim in Hebrew. It is,
in the pits.
That's the way it is. It's in very, very bad shape. In very bad shape. Cannot draw any conclusions from isolated, a few percentage, a small percentage of the world, of even the Jewish people, a small percentage of the Jewish people are religious, and they learn Torah, and they have enough to live. They may not be wealthy, but they have enough to live, and they have to eat the basic needs they have, and they're not lacking anything. Those people don't feel that they need Mashiach. What is it going to change in their life? What can be better? What can be better? People in the entire world are in tremendously great frustration. There's wars all over, there's hunger all over, there's corruption, there's immorality. It's rampant.
And little child. People are not having children.
There's not only that, they're aborting children. It's terrible. What's going on all over the world is immensely staggering. It's terrible. So we certainly need Mashiach. to help us straighten out the things. We can't be narrow-minded about our own little corner. You have to realize there's a big world out there, a tremendous world out there.
And people thought if we have the counselors and the psychiatrists and the drugs and medications, that it would make a better world. But it clearly is not. So we have no solution if left to ourselves.
No, of course not. No. There's got to be something, mamish, like Mashiach, something which is so colossal that even that is not going to happen overnight. Let's say Mashiach would come today, tomorrow. It's not going to happen overnight. It's a slow process. Thank you very much.
And we need divine help. People
That's right.
want to deny that.
Amen. Well, we have to find out the extent you do a good share.
And part of the problem is that this lack of awareness, the Baal Shem Tov answered, one of the reasons Mashiach is not coming is because people do not put in enough concentration in the bracha of Ava Rabbah before Kriya Shema. They do not really seek it. They don't ask for it. They don't really show that they want it. Even the ones who are religious daven every single day, they do not concentrate on the words. The word, that's is part of the gullus. Part of the gullus is people get habituated and do mitzvahs in a very rote way. And one of the most greatest victims of that is davening. Because you daven 3 times a day, every single day. So it's very difficult to really be, I would say, in full concentration and full motivation and full awareness and not do things just flowing along with the current. Very difficult. Therefore, in davening, people don't put in the korach that they're supposed to put into davening, and the davening ends up to be something which is like a yosem. It's like an orphan. It's lacking in proper guidance, it's lacking in proper performance. The whole thing fell away. That's why I took it on for myself. That they ask me sometimes what to give shiur in. I say we're going to give shiur in tefillah. This is something which is one of the most neglected mitzvahs that we have. Neglected, totally neglected, because it becomes part of your daily routine. You do it and you're finished with it. That's it, finished. It's one of the 3 pillars that hold up the world. Torah, Avodah, Gvulas Hasadim. Avodah is tefillah. And it's totally discarded. It's part of the gullus. No one's blaming anybody. I'm not being makatrik anyway. Just part of the way people live in gullus. They emphasize the wrong things. It's terrible, terrible. So let's get back into our Baal Shem Tov and try to put our emphasis on the right things and realize that there's plenty of work to do when it comes to tefillah. Plenty of work to do. And that's what we're here. So, okay, let's give you out the pages again. Take a page, please. 150, we're on 150. Page 150. There's 2 pages, 150, 151. Take 150.
Rabbi, just from what I studied in the Torah, the past generations have all been like this, and usually very hardships come to Shem to help them do tshuva, to help them turn from the crowd to him because the situation gets so bad. You even see it in the beginning with Midrash, how the people are in such a stressful situation. I see it probably coming like that here. They have this great reset that's supposed to be finished by 2030. They're going to collapse everything, and there ain't going to be cash anymore. It's going to be a cashless society. And I wonder how you're going to get tzedakah, and can't get it out to anybody. You won't have cash anymore. But very tough times, very bad times. But it's a wake-up call. It's not a bad thing. He's disciplined. He's trying to get our attention. When that happens, I think everybody, what you're talking about, will start focusing much more on, Michelle, we need the basement.
Well, there are people even going who are quite aware of what's going on today also. They realize there are certain people who are trying to reorganize the way the world works and have a different system, and there's a lot of corruption involved in it, a lot of corruption.
I'm not saying it I'm saying it's for the bad. I mean, I'm saying Shem is using it, but this is evil people. These are evil people.
Well, all right, let's put it this way. They're also victims of the Golos. It's not totally their fault. Not totally their fault. They weren't given in any time in their life a proper value system. They just weren't given it. They were born into a generation which is no values. Do what you want. Do what you want. Democracy. Be liberal. Be liberal. It's a big problem. It's a big problem. It's a big problem. All right, anyway, so we got to the point we were talking about last week, which is a very, very big shock to many people to hear the phraseology that the Baal Shem Tov uses. And you're required to realize that when you're davening Shemona Esrei, the most intimate kind of relationship that you can imagine in your mind is going on with Hashem. That means when you have an intimate relationship with somebody, you don't want anybody at all to interfere. Nothing and nobody. No thing and nobody. You want to be fully, fully focused. That is the way you're supposed to realize that you're davening Shemona Esrei, that you're totally, totally into it with Hashem. There's nothing else, it's just you and Him. Nothing else, you and Him, and that's it. And when you're on that level, you have tremendous amount of koach, because you're joining His general koach. You become part of this vast, vast universal koach that exists in the world. That's the Shekhinah. You become united with it. And anything interrupts that, anything interferes with that. Let's look at the Lashon of Baal Shem Tov. In Os Tzadi Ches, on the page 150. Kishenofeles lo machshava zora, when extraneous thought, 150 Tzadi Ches, Bebeinish, you're not looking at Tzadi Ches. Tzadi Ches, the last paragraph on the page. Tzadi Ches. Kishenofeles lo machshava zora, when a strange thought comes into your mind that has nothing to do with the tefillah. Yechanoch, Azai yidboshesh, ad ma'od. You should be very embarrassed. Why? This is one way of looking at it. You should know, if you have an extraneous thought, that means you're being pushed out. You're being pushed out. How did the thought get in there? Because you're being pushed out. That's a sign that Hashem is not interested in hearing what you have to say. V'yoshuv l'toch ha'hechel b'busha. You try to get back in with tremendous humility and embarrassment. Ki machshava zara hu aveira. An extraneous thought is a transgression, it's a sin. Kamo molid mamzer. You hear that? Kamo molid mamzer. It's as if you have given birth to a mamzer. Because you're in an intimate relationship with the Shekhinah, and something else comes in there that has no business being there, that is like adultery. And what is the result of that? A mamzer. Al derech isa b'gemara, it says in the Gemara, Rechela bas rechela azla, k'mo shemachshava hu dechara v'nukva. The machshava has to do with male and female. Why? Ki hakol v'hadibur heim dechara v'nukva. You have voice, you have sound, and you have speech. They take on the roles of male and female. They work together with each other. And if you have an extraneous thought, and your lips are still moving and they're saying the words of the tefillah, Javi, come on, Mamzer.
There's no connection.
Now that is a shocker. The first time I saw that, it really, really gave me a jolt. It's a very, very fierce thing to say. Now we're here in an environment where we're used to the Baal Shem Tov's approach, and I'm putting it out in such a way that we don't fall off our chairs, and we're not even raising our eyebrows. But if you would say this to somebody else, stop a person, tell a person, in shul, you daven without kavanah, it's like giving birth to a mamzer. You think you're out of your mind. You think, you can't tell it. Is that mine?
That's yours.
Could be, yeah.
It's your grandson. Grandma.
It's on the table.
No, it's not mine.
It's on the table.
Table? It sounds like mine, but it wasn't. I don't know where it came from.
Okay.
Okay.
There's no sense.
Oh, here it is. All right. So, anyway, this is the Baal Shem Tov's extreme way of trying to jolt us into being careful about machshavas zoros, was you have to prepare beforehand. What do you do when you're on top of it? You're on top of it. You're controlling it. You're aware of your thoughts. What do you do when a thought comes into your mind? The first thing you have to do is stop davening. That is the problem. You usually go ahead and let the words flow because that's the habitual way of davening. You don't stop. You don't stop. You have to realize if something strange comes into it, there is now a tumah that you have introduced. You can't let it go on. You've got to stop it right now and clean out whatever you have and then proceed. After you've controlled, you got back into it, you got the thing out of your mind, then you go on. But you cannot continue speaking the words while the thoughts are still there. And you're able to look at yourself, here my thoughts are going this way, my words are saying this way, and you're still doing it. You can't do that. You have to apply the brakes and stop saying anything. You have to catch yourself and get it out of your mind. Clear your mind. Now there is a way, he's going to tell us later on, there is a special shame that you can use to help you. I don't know exactly what page it comes in. It comes in much later, I guess. But I'll tell it to you right now. Why should we have to wait? I'll tell it to you right now. The shame is, you want to write it down, so you'll have it. The shame is Kaf Vav Zayin Vav. There's a special shame which has the koach to knock out any extraneous thoughts. It's
And then you got to think about that.
What?
And that's the difference.
Well, that's all fine. That's fine. Because in the middle of Shemona Esrei, I'll give you an example. Why? Middle of Shemona Esrei. You're at home davening. You're at home davening, let's say, right? And all of a sudden, someone comes to the doorbell, and they're ringing the bell, and you can't concentrate. I know that someone wants to get into the house, they're ringing the bell, they think we're home, and they know we're home, and I'm davening in the middle of davening Shemona Esrei. What do? I can't concentrate. What do?
Try to ignore it.
But you can't. They're ringing the bell, they're insistent. They're ringing the bell. And it's not a little bell, it's a bell that makes noise. You're allowed to go over and open the door, let them in, and motion to them, can't speak, in the middle of davening, go back to davening. Why? Because you have something which is disturbing your davening, you can't go on. How do you go on davening when your mind is not there, your mind is on them, they're bothering you? You're allowed to go over to the door, because this is all part of your Shemona Esrei. It's not something which you're doing which has nothing to do with Shemona Esrei. You're doing this so that you're able to daven Shemona Esrei better. What happens if you're in the middle of davening and you're davening Baal Peh? Let's say you're not davening with a sitter. All of a sudden, you forget where you're holding. Your mind went off something, you forget what you're holding. You better open up a sitter, and you don't have a sitter. The sitter is over in the shelves. Are you allowed to move your feet in the Shemona Esrei? No, you're not allowed to move your feet in the Shemona Esrei. You're not supposed to move. But
if
in
you
such a
wanna
case,
take it,
if you can't daven, you're allowed to walk over to the shelves, bring back a sitter, and continue from your spot where you are before. Because it's all considered part of the Shemona Esrei. It's to enhance, to improve the Shemona Esrei. Same thing with the door. Or if a father takes his little baby to shul, which he shouldn't, because children are only a disturbance to shul. Little kids are only a disturbance. And the kid's nagging away at his father, and he can't daven. So he's allowed to do something in the middle of Shemona Esrei to calm the kid down, whatever it is, to give him a motzeitz or to give him some candy, whatever it is, so that he can daven. And it's not considered to be a violation of the Shemona Esrei. On the contrary, you're doing it so that you can continue properly. It's the same thing over here happens. When a person has a thought, it doesn't belong there. It does not belong there. It's a mamzer has crept into my marriage. A mamzer has crept into my marriage. I got to get this mamzer out of my life. Use this shame. Think about it and concentrate on it. Kaf, Vav, Zayin, Vav. 4 letters. Kaf, Vav, Zayin, Vav. It has a special koach to black out any extraneous thoughts. The Kaf Vav, if you realize 26, is the gematria of Shem Hashem. And Zo is this particular thought which is bothering you. You want to apply the Shem Hashem to this thought to knock it out. If you say, Ko Zo, I want the Kaf Vav, the Yud Ke Vav Ke, I want that to knock out Zo, this negative thought which is bothering me. Ko Zo. Now you ask a question, why is it the Kaf Vav? Why don't you use the Yud Ke Vav Ke itself? Because the Yud Ke Vav Ke itself is Kulo Rachamim. It's all Ahava Rachamim. It doesn't knock out anything. It's not the nature. You need the numerical value of the Shem Hashem, which has a little bit less Rachamim and Ahava in it, has a little bit of a din, enough to knock out the thought. If you need a powerful force, then that numerical value will give you that powerful force to knock out the strenuous thought. So that's what you do. You stop davening. If you have these thoughts, you could try it without the Shem Tov, without trying to just get it out of your mind. But if you want to resort to a little bit of help of a Shem Kadosh, just think of it. Kaf Vav, Zayin Vav, Ko Zu. And you think that the Kaf Vav is the numerical value of the Yud Ke Vav Ke. That will knock out Zu, this thought. You think of that, and it will help you, Mitzvah Hashem, to be able to continue to have davening without any extraneous thoughts. The best thing to do is, before you start davening the Shemona Esrei, before you start, think of that Shem as a preventive. It's much more valuable as a preventive than as a remedy after the problem. It already comes into force. You think to yourself, anything comes into my mind, I'm using the Kaf Vav Zo right now to knock it out, to prepare it. As soon as the thought comes, this is going to come up and knock it out immediately. So think of that Shem before you start Shemona Esrei. Have it ready there in case of need. Now I would say the time and the place to put the most concentration is the first bracha. The first bracha of Shemona Esrei, that is the place to put in all your energies. Do everything you can until Baruch Atah Hashem Magen Avraham, everything you have into that, and don't let anything get in there. Because that's the main bracha of Shemona, the most important bracha of the Shemona Esrei. So if you have that, the rest will go easier. If you put in all your koach in the beginning, in the first Shemona Esrei, the full concentration, full focus, and if you're not going to do it bal peh, you do it with your eyes open, and your finger on every letter. Finger on every letter, not on the word, on every letter. Fully focusing on it. Think of it, each letter that you're saying there is worth $1 million. Every letter you say it properly with concentration. Each one. So you'll have a big accomplishment if you can get to Baruch Hashem Magen Avraham, and you're fully concentrated, fully focused, and you didn't let anything get in. After a while, with practice, you go another bracha. You start off small, and then you build it up, and Mitzvah Hashem, you'll have Hatzlacha. Don't take off too much of a bite. It's going to try to do it for the entire Shemona Esrei. It's almost impossible. Almost impossible. Start off with one bracha, and then after you practice that, and you're confident that you really can do it well, then go on to the next bracha. Do one thing at a time. Okay. All right, that is that. So we didn't finish the paragraph there. Yesh lo tzura. So he says, what is a mamzer? He's explaining what is a mamzer. A mamzer looks like any other person. Can you tell by looking at a mamzer if he's different than anybody else? You can't tell. You can't tell. You don't know what's going on in his lineage. Who is his father? Who is his mother? You can't tell. A mamzer looks like anybody else. So he says the words of Shemona Esrei are like the body, and the thoughts, the inside the word, the thoughts, that's where the mamzer is. You can't see that. That's something which is not visible. The letters themselves are there, that's the body. Sheyesh lo tzura kamo ha'adam akasher rak hapnimiyus hu ra. The internalized part of it, the thoughts, that's ra. Kach hadibur hu ba'osios kadoshos. Your speech is saying over the holy letters. Rak shamachshava hu ra'ah. Shechoshev dov acher. Umolid bimamzer midibur kadosh. And therefore what comes out, what's the product? The product is a mamzer. A extraneous thought which is coming from the dibur that you're saying, with this is like a mamzer. V'od yachshov, furthermore you can think, Yakadosh Baruch Hu omer lo, madua bosa b'hateva, ve'ein ani b'hateva. Think of it also another way of looking at it. Say, why did you come into this world? Why did you come in? If I'm not there, what are you doing there? The whole point of tefillah is to address me, but I am not there. So what are you doing here? What are you doing here? Out. That's these are ways of tricks to keep a person focused. You could say, Hashem says, what are you doing in my palace? I'm not there. You're thinking about somebody else. You're thinking about somebody else. You're not interested in me. So get lost. Get lost. Kach machshavto b'shoshetes badvorim achirim. When your thoughts go to something else, it's the same idea. This is what Hashem, in a sense, is saying to you. You're just saying the words, you're here, but you're not here. I'm not interested in somebody here physically and his mind is not here. I want somebody who's totally for me. His mind and his words are all together, focused on me alone, Hashem says. I don't want anybody competing with me. Okay. Now he says something further. Inside the next page, or you don't have the next page, 151. Here's the next page, 151. Rabbinish, 151. Rabbinish. Let me push. Banish. Adnish, Lornish.
Dagger! Rabbi wants to talk with you.
Next page, Banish. Next page. Okay, 151. That's it. That's all we need. That's all we need. Okay.
Okay.
151. Tzadi Tes, next page, on top of the page. Im adam mispalel v'yesh lo machshava acheres. If a person is davening and he has another thought which has nothing to do with the words, azai chas v'shalom haklipa rocheves al hadibur. You have to beware of this. It's not that you have an empty thought, a extraneous thought, and it has nothing to do with the words. No. It doesn't work that way. When you have a word that you're saying that has kedusha, and you have another thought which has nothing to do with that word, the koch of tuma settles on that word. You hear that? Chas v'shalom haklipa rocheves al hadibur. The speech that came out of your mouth that had kedusha is now going to be, let's call it, attacked by the kochos of tuma. Ki machshava rocheves al hadibur. There's always thought which is riding on the speech. This was in Shir Hashirim. He says praise of the horses and the chariots of Paro. Susim nikraim hadiburim. The horses are compared to words, to speech. Ukesheparo, when Paro means the extraneous, the bad thoughts, hainu machshava zora rochev olav. When Paro is on the chariot, on the words, the bad thoughts are on the words. Azai di misich rayasi. What does that mean? Yoser tov ilu shotek. It's better to be quiet. If you realize that negative thoughts came into your mind or extraneous things, don't say anything. Be shotek. Be silent. Aval davar hayotzi milev nichnas alev. Pirish belev ha'elyon al yedei ha'haval kinoda. But something that comes from your heart and you're saying it properly, that's when it goes up to Hashem, and that's what we really want. Now here you have a very revealing piece on the bottom. Take a look at the note on the bottom, on the left side, the Makor Mayim Chaim Ayin Gimel. Now here's something very, very interesting. When you speak, right, you say words of tefillah, of Torah. You are in the opinion that your words go up to Shemayim. Are you not? Assuming that you're concentrating, you're focusing, if your words go up to Shemayim, correct? Look what he says. Look what he says. Look at the bottom on the page on the Ayin Gimel there on the left side. B'sefer Or HaMeir, Shir Hashiri, a pasuk, Miz ois ola kosev v'zel shana. Shemaiti b'shem Baal Shem Tov. She'omar, Inyan echos aliyos tfilasenu. Where is our tefillah going up to Shema? What does that mean? He's going to explain what it means. This is what it says. B'vadai, he says, it's certain, ha-tefillah eina ola begashmius k'mo she'odem motzi peh. It's absolutely certain the words do not go up to Shemayim as you say them. Forget about that. Forget about that. It's a vada, he says. The words that you say, do not think that these words go up to Shemayim. What does go up? Ki im kamo ha'ashar ola. What goes up is like something could be compared to smoke, vapor. That's what goes up to Shemayim. A vapor of some kind. The words, once you say the words, that's it, they're gone. You say it right this second, and a second later, there's no word there. What's left? What's left? Some kind of impression that you have made on the air through sound, through your lips. That air now elevates itself. And what is it there? Ru'usa v'ratzon ha'adam. All that's left is what gives a push to that air is your ratzon, your will, your intention, your kavanah. That's all. So there's a lot of vapor in the air. That vapor goes up to Shemayim. What's pushing it up? What's pushing it up? Your ratzon, your intention that the words should go up to Shemayim, could go up to Shemayim. That's what pushes it up. The words themselves do not go up in the same form that we say them. Don't think if I say Baruch, the word Baruch is, the letters are floating up there. No. They are not floating up there. There's a impression of the words that I said on the vapor. My ratzon, that's what pushes it up. And there's something else that he didn't say here, we learned from other places. In order for things to go up, they have to have wings to take them up. What are the wings that take them up? Remember, we said it's very important. The wings that take up our mitzvos, our tefillah, are two things: ahava and yira. That's what we say. B'dechilu urechimu. L'shem yichod kutsu b'richu u'shchimtei b'dechilu urechimu. Rechimu u'dechilu. B'ahava and yira. Those are the wings that take up that vapor. Whereas the ratzon gives it a life. The ratzon, your will, your intention, gives it a life. It now has some substance to it. There's something to go up there. And what actually takes it up are its the wings. It flies up by the emotions of Ava and Yira. So you have your ratzon, your intention, your rational side, has to have the emotions of Ava and Yira to take up the word. This is absolutely amazing. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful because Hashem wants us to worship Him in the fullest sense. Not only do we have to worship Hashem with our mind, we have to worship Hashem with our emotions too. And the emotions with the mind, that's why you have to have leiv. You have to, as Hashem, you must have leiv. That is a way of expressing our emotions. So you have the emotions, Ava and Yira, on either side, and then you have the rationale, the main body itself, the ratzon, the will, the intention, the rational side. That is the real guf. It's called. That's the body of it. But that body has to go up with emotions. If you have the two wings with taking it up, the Ava and Yira. So it's a complete unit. It has the rationale, the guf in the middle, and the emotions on each side, Ava and Yira, and that's what takes it up. So he's only talking here about the middle part, the guf. He says, and according to the flame and to the arousal that you have, that's what will push it up. A person who has seichel, Yira asher kalalos hatfilos k'she'olim einim ki'im k'mo oshan ha'oleh. Rak ru'usa v'ratzon. So just think about this for a moment. When all the tefillos that are said by everybody in the room, and all of the tefillos of anybody in the city, and all over the world, they all get together, and it is one big, I would say, compilation of everybody's ratzon. That's what goes up.
Will.
Huh?
Will.
The will, the intention. Yeah. That's what goes up. Nothing physical goes up. No physical thing goes. The words that you said during I say Baruch, don't think of it a beis and a reish and a vav as the form and the way you look at it in the siddur. That's what goes up. A beis, nothing like that goes up. Nothing like that goes up. It's b'shem the Baal Shem Tov. I wouldn't be able to say this. I wouldn't have enough knowledge to be able to say such a thing. Baal Shem Tov has. He can say it. What goes up is this vapor. He calls it a smoke of some kind. Smoke. There's some warmth in the vapor. What goes up is the ratzon, your intention. Your intention goes up. And it's taken up by Ava, the emotions of Ava and Yira. It's a beautiful idea. So you have to always have a complete unit in order to serve Hashem properly. The same thing applies to a mitzvah. When I do a mitzvah, I give tzedakah. What goes up? What goes up? The coin goes up. What goes up to Shemayim? What happens when I give tzedakah? What goes up to Shemayim? How is it registered? What goes on the books? The same thing. My intention. There is some kind of impression made in the universe of a deed. Something happened, an action happened. It makes some kind of impression in the universe. In quantum physics, They can explain it very well. Everything's going on. It makes some kind of impression. Something happens. There's an action and it causes a reaction. Something happens. And this action with the intention is what makes it registered in the book, Upper Shemayim.
So Rabbi, are you saying it's the thought that goes up? The intention is the thought?
Well, your intention, that's right, that's it is, that's correct.
So even if the action gets somehow subverted, it's the thought first. It's best when you have the thought and the action, but sometimes it doesn't work out.
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Explain what you mean.
We could think something that may be very beautiful and very pure. And then somehow, through the action, it could be speech that subverts it, it could be someone else's interpretation of it, and the thought, it just gets, the action rather, doesn't really follow the thought.
Well, that's the problem. See, that's where you have to be focused. When you do something, you do a mitzvah, you have to focus on what you're doing so that your thoughts are on the action. So that's one complete unit.
Right.
So that action, that impression that's made in the universe, in the Shekhinah, that's what goes up. That's what registered. Same thing. And it's so interesting that the pasuk Shlomo David Melech says in Tehillim. It's very interesting. Retzon Yireyov Yaseh. We say it in Ashrei all the time. Retzon Yireyov Yaseh. That means to say, if you have the Ratzon, Hashem, if He really loves you, He wants to show how He appreciates you. You don't even have to ask for it. You don't have to verbalize it. You don't have to say it out, because the main body is the Ratzon. The Ratzon. And if you have Yirah Shamayim, you have awe, you're awe-inspired, you have the proper attitude to Hashem, many, many times He will do what you want without you having to express it. Because He knows what you want. He knows what you want. Because you and the Shekhinah are almost like one and the same. Hashem can read your mind. He doesn't have to say anything. So if you want something bad enough, and you're a real tzaddik, you have Yirah Shamayim, Hashem very often will do your ratzon. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to say anything, just do it. It'll happen. It'll happen. Not all the time, of course. And it depends, there are some exceptions. Some things you do have to say out. But since the main body of what goes up is the ratzon, that's the guf, and assumingly that you're a Yirah Shamayim and you also are Ohev Hashem too, so you already have a complete unit. It doesn't have to come out of you. It doesn't have to come out of you. Hashem comes into you and He reads it and He can do what He wants and He'll do it. So it's very interesting how it's a complete unit. You have a mitzvah which has to have the ratzon, an action which has to have the ratzon, and then you have to have the wings that take it up, the ava and the yira. You have a complete unit. And if you're enough of a tzaddik, you don't have to say a word. It'll happen by itself.
But most of us are not tzaddikim.
Well, then you work on being a tzaddik. What can I tell you? Work on being a tzaddik. All right. All right. I see. Is that the thing? Yeah, that's enough for today. All right, we'll stop over here.